Alice, welcome to Revitalized Womanhood podcast. I'm so excited to have you on here. I'm so excited to pick your brain because I don't know if you know this. You couldn't know this because I've never told you. I'm telling you now. You are, to this day, the most interesting person I have ever read about, learned about. Everything about you is just wow.
Oh,
Is that too much? Is that too much?
I don't know.
Now you have to live up to that.
That's amazingly flattering. I don't know that I'm worthy of that. Maybe I've just done a good job with my Instagram.
Yeah, no, you are. And for my community, when I don't even know how we got connected in the inner world of the social media gram and whatever. I don't know how we got connected, but I'm so grateful that you said that you would come on here. And so here I am, like, ever since you booked your date, I've been just like binging on what you've done, what you've put out, and other podcasts you've been on. And everything I get further into, I'm just like, wow. It's yes, you do deserve it. You've worked really hard. I want you specifically. I know we talked about you sending over a bio, and you're like, well, which part of it? And I'm
Right.
like, yes, that. Exactly. Because the biggest reason that I would like for you, if you could do it, is break down your bio and not me just like hacking it off the internet. I would really like to hear your full bio because there's a point behind hearing that full bio.
Would you like me to start at the present moment and work backwards, maybe? Or
Sure,
let's.
sure.
Okay. I'm just trying to think of
It's all the things you've done, you've accomplished, your achievements.
a lot of things. Boy, I don't know where to begin. I mean, I'm a writer, um, and I guess when I think back to that, writer is kind of a career like rock star. People say they want to do it, and you kind of wonder if you're ever going to make that work. And for me, writing was always the thing that I could do the best, and I was always very good at it, even as a little kid, to my own detriment. Sometimes I think it drove the adults in my life crazy, but I was very good at speaking my mind about pretty much anything and saying picking up on what the thing was that everybody was thinking that no one was saying and everyone was afraid to say. And I was like, well, I'm not afraid to say it. I'll say it. And I've turned that into a great way to make a living, talking about the things that everybody's thinking but people are afraid to say. And maybe my life's a little bit like that. If I think about the things I've done and try to unite them under a theme, it's kind of like there's all kinds of things that we think about that maybe we want to do or we're curious to try. And maybe the only difference between me and some other people is I just go ahead and give it a shot. I try everything. And so that's led to some really cool wins, like the writing career I have now, working with members of the special operations community and the cool stuff that they do, getting to learn straight away from them. Um, Being able to take that and actually serve others with it. So my company, Sofxle, that I founded earlier this year, bringing lessons from special operations and high performance mindset and resilience to members of law enforcement. The things that I suppose the trials or tests I've sought out for myself to kind of train myself and try to be the fullest version of myself I can be, that's benefited me in those careers. So whether it was taking on boxing, learning to fight, taking some fights, competing in paddleboarding, competing in snowboarding, working to elevate my game in those things as I've gotten older. So, I competed snowboarding at the national level when I was in college, but landed a trick last winter or the year before that I'd never done at 22, and I'm 44 now. Um, so just trying to push those limits and you know, when I was starting grad school, so I was in college for a long time, and I asked my advisor, "What's the secret to finishing this PhD program?" And he said, um, "Just don't stop, don't quit, and don't fall behind. Because if you keep going and you keep turning everything on time, and you put one foot in front of the other, you're going to still be there at the end when a lot of people aren't." And that was phenomenal advice because that's what got me through to the end and put me through 11 or 12 years of schooling. Um, but now with what I do, I think I see these themes across the board. So I'm really, really interested in high performance. I'm really interested in the mindset that leads to success, whether it's finishing a a PhD program, or making it as a single mom, or taking on something new like rescuing horses, which is something I did. Brought home a Mustang a couple years ago. Um, is sort of exploring, I suppose, those opportunities to grow. And I don't, I don't really ever feel like I'm good enough. I don't really ever feel like I'm enough. I just feel, the one thing I do feel is that the older I get and the more vulnerable I am and the more mistakes I've made, the more insight or maybe wisdom I can share that's actually valuable. Um, and so the coolest thing, one of the coolest things I've ever done, aside from raising my own kids, was this fall I coached a youth girls field hockey team, and that was a tremendously transformative experience for me, um, and so rewarding, because I learned that those lessons that apply to special forces and Green Berets and Navy SEALs actually apply to everyone, including middle school girls. Um, I don't know. I don't know. That's sort of an overview. Did I touch on a lot of the things
You
there?
said it beautifully. You said it not, like I was expecting 3 master's degrees, PhD, writer, editor, part of this Green Beret Foundation. You break it down into these titles, right?
Hmm.
But it wasn't how beautifully you just said it.
Uh,
You didn't say that. You said it in your way, and it was so beautiful. And I'm so glad that you just talked about that your greatest achievement other than children is that hockey team, because I want to talk about, so my community, Revitalized Womanhood, and my membership is the Revitalized Sisterhood inside of that. And we're working on women becoming the best versions of themselves, whatever that means for them, And I'm seeing, and not just with this isn't saying them in particular, but with women being kind of like the fog has been lifted from me, because I have been a stay-at-home mom. I've done my time working, having the jobs, having the whatever. And I was a stay-at-home mom and I loved it. I'm not saying that, but I had the fog kind of lifted from me when I took on this project and this business. And now I'm looking back from and seeing that the fog is still on so many women, that they feel like society has told them that they're enough. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
being a mom, being a wife, you're enough. That's all you need to do.
Mm.
And I'm not trying to crap on that, because that is hard. That is
Right.
hard work. My husband is figuring that out now. He's the stay-at-home dad, and he is figuring out how hard that job is.
Hmm.
So I'm not doing that. But I'm also saying, before you were a mom, before you were a wife, you were a woman, right?
Right.
And you had these visions of what your life would be, or you had these goals, or we always get asked, well, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
where did that go? Because some girls said, I want to be a mommy, and that's fine. I'm not taking
Hmm.
away from that. That's a beautiful job. But you can also be something else. You can also be XYZ. And you have proven that. You have just gone the distance
Uh,
with that philosophy, because what makes us feel like we need to stop? Why is it that we become complacent, or why is it that we feel like neutral is the highest level we can be?
yeah. You know, and I hear you. I think that, and I don't fault women for this. I think society gives us a lot of narratives and tells us this is how your life is supposed to work. So, um, back in the period of time when I got married to my now ex-husband, with whom I'm great friends, and we happily co-parent our kids. We're just super different people. Um, that was kind of the area of like Tom and Katie getting married, and Jessica and Nick Lachey, and the big diamond rings and the Vera Wang dresses with the satin sash. And it was like everyone had the same formula, and you were supposed to check these boxes. And there I was in the post Sex in the City era, living in New York City, married to a guy in consulting banking world, in the doorman building, able to go into wherever, I can't remember the name, Bergdorf or whatever they were called, and buy the Chanel handbag. It's like I had the things that were supposed to make me happy, and I was kind of looking around me like, what's wrong with me? Something wasn't fitting. Like I still wanted to sit in my apartment and burn a candle and drink wine and play Ryan Adams songs on my guitar. I wanted to cry every time I saw the horses hitched to the carts in Central Park. Like I wasn't living who I am. at all. I love to snowboard. I am a snowboarder. I gave up the dream of I could have tried to pursue an Olympic path at that time. It was wide open in my discipline, but I didn't. I stayed in graduate school because I thought that was what I was supposed to do. That's prestigious. That's how do you turn down the Ivy League to move out to Colorado Springs? You don't. Um, and so I had to, it was really hard, and I had to throw on the brakes and talk to my ex-husband about that, and take the path in life that I knew was going to make me happy. And it's been a really, really hard path, but it's been really fulfilling. And I think there's a lot of noise in our society that tells women, like, hey, this is what you're supposed to do. Get the certain house, paint it gray because that's what they show you on Pinterest, hang up the live, laugh, love thing, curl your hair a certain way, dress your kids in matching Christmas pajamas and do the Christmas card. I mean, my God, there's a script for every single thing. What stroller to buy is cool and what type of engagement ring is it? And it's like you live in this world full of infinite possibilities, infinite potential. And we're going to die without knowing what that was. And I, not to take anything away from them, but I had two incredible grandmothers I looked up to and loved with all my heart, whose houses were spick and span. You could have eaten off the floor. And within a week of their passing, that was no longer the case. So what I saw was you can provide your family with a lifetime of happy memories, but I don't remember during those happy family meals at their houses if their floors were clean. I just remember the meal and the togetherness. I think sometimes we get lost in trying to uphold these narratives without ever pausing to ask ourselves, like, is a really clean floor really what I value most in this world? Is that what I want my legacy to be? Or are the things that are bigger that mean more to me? I do not believe in letting your kids fall behind that. I don't believe in having your kids and handing them off to someone so that you can go pursue other things. I don't believe that being a mom isn't an accomplishment. I just think that, like you seem to say, that enriching yourself is not mutually exclusive with anything else. Um, I don't know. I kind of went off on a tangent there.
I love it. I'm a tangent taker too. Sometimes you think I'm going this way and then the left turn comes and we're down there. I love it. That's me too. Well,
Yeah.
you said it so well, and I think you're right. I think we fall into these checking off the boxes. And it's interesting because you come from a completely different background, of how you were raised and the New York City, the big city life and whatever. And here in Utah, it's like women aren't necessarily encouraged to go to college. It is, you kind of are expected to just, I mean, literally, if you're not married by the time you're 19, and if you don't
Right.
have kids by the time you're 21, everyone's like, what is wrong with you? When are you getting married? When are you getting married? When are you getting married? Oh,
Right.
when are you having the baby now? When are you having the baby now? When are you having the baby? It's like, good grief, when's the second baby coming? When's the second?
Right.
And so these girls that do happen to go to college, it's because they're waiting for their missionary to come home and finish his 2 years of traveling and growing himself. Or they're just going to be a teacher until they meet their husband and then they can stay home. I mean, it's such a different mentality of,
Yeah.
so you grew up in that box, go
Yeah.
to the Ivy League college, go to get your degree, you talked about, I heard you in a podcast talking about you went to the all girls school, and
Yeah.
it was exactly what we see on movies, and we can't even fathom that that's really people, human beings, that's how they act.
Yeah.
And you said it, and I'm like, oh, they're really real people like that. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But whereas on this side, we're built to fit in this little bubble here. So you're built to fit in that little bubble. So it's really interesting how two completely different
Mm-hmm.
concepts can
Mm-hmm.
come from the same culture. I mean,
Yeah.
America is a culture.
Yeah.
That's
And
that's what. Sorry, go ahead.
no, I just didn't know about the Utah connection with you because I grew up, my hometown is Kirtland, Ohio. So I'm very connected with, like, I knew all the missionaries and young folks who would, come serve a mission to go home and be married in like a year. And that was always a tough thing for me to see, not to judge anybody's faith related choices, but really, again, just knowing young women and how, and having been married once and now divorced, it's not easy to find the right partner, and it's also not easy to know yourself well enough to know who's the right partner for you at that age. So that's really tough. That, those boxes about being a wife and mother and things. I've seen. So I've seen the Utah piece. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I'm wondering with these women. So now here I am in this leadership role.
Mm-hmm.
I'm shoulder to shoulder with these women is more what I think about it, right? I'm not above. I'm not anything. I'm shoulder to shoulder. And
Yeah.
maybe because I have had the fog lifted by just stepping out of my comfort zone and starting a business and starting a podcast and whatever, having the ability to do that. So now my fog is kind of lifted and I'm like, oh, wait, there's more out here. There's what can we do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? I'm trying to like help them. We're talking about the tugboat and the lighthouse right now, but I do feel like I'm being the tugboat. Like, come on, come on, come on. When I want to know, like, what would you like to do? And you actually said there, you kind of paraphrased, you were talking to your friend. Is it Jeff? Is it Boss or Ross?
Oh, boss. Yeah.
Boss
Boss.
with a B.
With a B. Yeah.
And he told you the crux of some factors is where your spot is in the world. Do you know what I'm talking about when I say that?
I think he said, if you can identify something you're passionate about, a need that the world has, and there was one more thing, and I can't remember, it was a long time ago that he told me that, but finding that
Your skills.
Yeah, something only you can do. So your passion, something only you can do, and a need that the world has. And when you find that space, your home, like your work is no longer work. It's just your life. You're just living your passion. And I can see that, clearly with you, the way that you reached out to me and your authentic enthusiasm for connecting with other women, uplifting other women. It was exciting to me, and I could see that, like, you're outgoing and you're full of ideas and full of life, and you can spark these conversations, and you're genuinely curious and thoughtful. So like that's your space to be in. And it's funny because for me, that's when people say, why military? Why special operations? And I'm like, because that was me. I was always feisty, full of fight. But like they joke, a Green Beret should be a PhD that could win a bar fight. That's me. And so I was like, oh, I just happen to be a female. But other than that, I'm not saying by any means that I would ever dare to compare myself to someone who's gone through that level of training or anything, not to, take away from that achievement, but just simply sort of values wise and culturally, like we all have tribes in the world that we'll find our way towards when we start to live from that authentic place of like, it might even be the thing that got you in trouble as a kid, that you can take and turn into an asset. Maybe Gina was too chatty in class growing up. Maybe were you right? But now look, you're a podcaster. You're really, really good at that. You're a professional conversationalist. Like we can take these things, and take those voices and turn them on their heads. I just a funny thing I was thinking of this morning when I was in the barn. I was thinking about that I'd be talking to you today, and I was thinking about a speaker I saw when I was out in San Diego at the Navy SEAL Foundation Forum, and this speaker was talking about identifying the inner critic in your brain that kind of stops you from doing what you dream of or cuts down your dreams. And she said, name your inner critic so that you can depersonalize from it and like fight back and say, stop it. And I named my inner critic after Mrs. Grumney, my 7th grade English teacher at the all-girls school, who told me that my writing was trying too hard to be cool. And now here I am today, and I'm like, suck it, Mrs. Grumney, because like apparently it's not too bad. So I don't know. I went on another big tangent again, but I just think we got to find it's the hardest part is finding that the impetus for what direction to go in. Sometimes we get so used to shutting down what's special about us. Like if your teacher told you you can't write, or your teacher told you talk too much in class, then do we start to shut that down without realizing that that's actually our greatest power? But we need to find
Absolutely.
that as an adult, like when we find our path.
Absolutely. I just did my last newsletter was on finding, I was talking about it is in consumerism, but why consumerism? And I think it's because of we're valued by what we have. And because our self-worth is what society is telling us is valued on what we have. And it's like, why?
Right.
Let's dig deeper in that. Where did you lose
Right.
being okay with who you are and loving yourself? And you actually said it, you had a teacher or something that was like, oh yeah, you're built like an athlete. That's good. Right?
Yeah.
You said you're built like an athlete, and that's good. And it kind of gave you that perspective of, hey, that is good. That's okay.
Yeah.
And so you had that foundation. So again, back to your field hockey team, you're being able to implement those into the next generation before someone else has an opportunity to tell them they're supposed to look like a fashion model. They're supposed to be completely edited to an untrue, unfathomably true image,
Yeah.
and that's what
Yeah.
social media is doing. And yeah, I love that you've gotten out of that kind of, you saw all of that in New York and went back to your
Yeah.
roots in Ohio, and you've got your farm, and that is 100% what my husband and I are trying to do for our kids. We left the country with them and went to travel and just got out of it. Said, we don't want to do this. And we're still living in a way that no one would believe. Like, our house is tiny, our cars are old, but we still want that for our kids. We want them to raise animals and know the value of hard work, and not just everything should be given to you, and not that you need to have the newest iPhone, and not that you need to have the, so, well,
Yeah.
see me, I go on tangents too. See,
Yeah.
I do it too. I
But
end
we
up
need-
somewhere else. I don't even know
No.
what the point of that was.
And just a big, there were so many things you said that I want to connect to. I mean, I think to go back to what you said when you mentioned the field hockey team and thinking about identifying our values, like when you're talking about, you've made deliberate choices about how to raise your children that involve putting them in nature, giving them an opportunity to exist outside of this consumer culture that wants to define what they are. And I do think in our society right now, we are in a battle to save our girls 100% with what social media is doing to them, and just how much it's hurting their souls. And with my team, one of the most special things, and I would tell them this from the beginning, and it was funny because I actually got this from Green Berets, where when they're on a 12-man ODA, a team, each person has a different job, but they all need to be able to interact and do each other's job. Same thing with my field hockey team, 11 players, I actually had 12. And I said, my job as your coach is to find out what is special about each one of you and what you can contribute. And I'm going to use that to help us win. And they kind of looked at me, and I said, the deal is this: somebody here might be fast, somebody might be strong, somebody might be compassionate, somebody might be funny, somebody might be really conscientious and good at bringing the group back and getting us on task. Whatever is special about you, I'm going to find the place on the field and the job for you that helps us win by using what's special and unique about you and your strength. And to that point, I mean, that was really testing because this is my first season coaching girls field hockey. But this was a team that, as far as I know, I don't think won any or very many last season. They ended up winning 5, tying 5, and only losing 1 all season. And the one was almost a technicality. So it worked. And, I really thought about this. I picked an adjective for each girl and described them. One girl was luminous, one girl was tenacious. And I described, and I told them why I chose that word for them. And I told them, I want to see you the way your mom would see you, or someone who loves you. I want to see you. Field hockey isn't the place. This field and this team isn't going to be the place where someone's judging you about how expensive your sneakers are or what boy likes you. Your value isn't determined by what boy is paying attention to you. Your value is determined by you. You are valuable. But we live in a world that makes girls and women feel like we're a product on a shelf, like we're trying to groom ourselves into this best I don't know, like we market ourselves almost. I mean, social media encourages it. We have to brand ourselves. Even colleges now, they want kids on their applications like to have started a foundation and a nonprofit. What does all that involve? It involves branding, it involves social media, and it's completely inauthentic, and you're training kids so far away from living from their soul and from the part of you that gratifies you. And like you mentioned, but getting your kids out in the country, getting them around animals. You spend the morning in the barn with a horse as he's munching grain in the sunrise, and you realize like how little we actually need in this world to be happy, and you need that. I think we really need to expose ourselves and our kids to that so we can see um, how much artifice is going on and how much is getting pushed on us. We have to be able to find the true self, the person that has that adjective, if that makes sense. I have to find my determination or my passion or my cheer, whatever it is that makes me special in this world. I think you find it in the quiet, or in the eyes of the ones who love you, not in that consumer like construct.
Yeah, I love that you find it in the quiet. I'm a advocate for sitting quietly, even if it's in the pickup line, the school pickup line, sitting quietly in your car, turn everything off, turn your phone off, don't touch it, and close your eyes and just like breathe and go into yourself. And what happens in that 5 minutes that you actually have to yourself, that you can connect with yourself. So I'm an advocate for that. So I actually love the quiet for that reason, because we don't get opportunities for quiet ever. We're
Right.
constantly bombarded with even, all of the electronics, and my kids, I love it when they say they're bored, and I'm like, oh my gosh, go outside then. Because guess what? Boring people get bored. Go figure it out. I'm not going to have you sitting here playing all these games that are telling you how to get your imagination going. Go outside and get your imagination going. Go
Yeah.
do it,
Yeah, getting bored is a
Absolutely.
blessing in this society because you can always pick up the phone and not be bored. And that's
Yes.
a damaging thing because your creativity, that's what kills creativity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
You are an advocate for self-discipline, obviously, because you couldn't have done all the things that you've accomplished if you weren't. How can I get into that headspace of being better at that? Like, just what's your tip and trick for self-discipline? Because I fall into it. I'll sit in my bed for an extra 30 minutes and have my coffee rather than just get up and get ready for the day. Or, there's procrastination and things that I fall into still that I need to get past. What's your best tip for that?
If I tell you the truth, it's just that I still struggle with it every single day. um, that's the truth. I think for me, um, one good tip with discipline that I've figured out is I've had to make peace with the fact that not every job can be done in a day. I I used to always be like the big push girl, like I'm gonna get this done. I'd stay up till 4 in the morning to get the thing done, whatever I wanted done. Um, because I think I don't like the anxiety of sitting with something that's halfway complete. Um, but that was limiting the scope of what I was able to take on, if that makes sense, because I would only take on things that I felt my definition of what was manageable was what I felt like I could crush and kind of knock out in one big push. Um, what I've learned is there are seasons, like for the big accomplishments, I had to get comfortable with seasons of sowing and then the reaping, and understanding that sometimes I'm in a season of sowing. And if you call me and ask me what's going on, I don't have anything very exciting or impressive to tell you because I'm planting seeds every day. Every day it's a little bit. And I tell my field hockey girls, every workout's money in the bank. Some days it's 50 cents, some days it's $100. Not every practice will be your best practice, but you have to put something in the bank every day as best you can, and get up and put that foot in front of the other. Um, because the days do come when it's time to harvest the fruits of your labor. And the day that I have that thing where people say, wow, you accomplished this, you published this book, or oh my God, you jumped out of an airplane, or you did a boxing fight. And they didn't see all the decisions and choices and sacrifices on the back end of that, um, that really amount to, and this is what I'm about to give you my, I guess, definition of discipline for busy women, realistic discipline, which is for busy women that have children and jobs, and maybe you're like me, you're a single mom, you're trying to do everything, animal farm, everything. The reality is that the best I can do some days, very often, is I can't always have that regimented structure that you're going to see in fitness books, or that I might have in a fight camp 3 weeks out from a boxing fight, where I'm eating this many calories a day, every macronutrient is perfect, I'm up at the same time, in bed at the same time. That's not realistic 365, right? So instead, I think I'm going to set my GPS, like my mental GPS, on this goal. And I know this is where I'm headed. And I know there's mini goals on the way to the main goal. I know there's signposts I need to hit. But along the way, like every little choice you make in the course of a day can either take you closer to that goal or away from that goal. And I try to stay mindful of that. Like, am I making, whether it's what I have for breakfast this morning, like we made cupcakes. I can grab a cupcake, but if I do, I'm going to be crashing in 3 hours. I'm going to be falling asleep at my desk. I'm not productive. So I have to think about that. I have to be mindful, like what's going to set me up for success 4 hours down the road, 4 days down the road. Um, and I think working on it in that way um, has really helped me probably achieve a lot of things. And it also makes space for me to be human, because there are days when, like I'll get a panic attack or have anxiety at night, and maybe I can't sleep that night. And then the next day I'm set, I have a little setback, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Today I need to watch, Emily in Paris and drink tea in my bed with my dogs. Cool. When that's done and I'm okay again, I'm going to get back on my feet and we're going to keep moving forward. If I mess up, if I get stressed and I yell at my kids, I'm going to take a breather and apologize to them. And then we're going to move forward and just keep moving towards that goal and be kind to yourself on the way.
I love it because it's not, some people might call that like giving yourself that time out. Some people might call that, I don't know the word for it. Anyway, Emily Frizella calls them glitter words, like empowerment, stuff like that. But some people might say that I'm the woo girl for that kind of, and it's like, no, you need a mental break. If you don't release, I always come back to the example of the pressure valve in a pressure cooker. You have to have some kind of release.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the release is going to be nasty and way bigger than it needs to be. So if taking time to have your you time is going to relieve that pressure from that valve, that's, you have to do it. Yeah. You have to. And it's like you're saying, we're constantly being told. There's actually a statistic here in Utah, and I really should look it up. There's a statistic about stay-at-home moms and their addiction and abuse of antidepressants, because they're all constantly being told that they have to be better, have to be perfect, have to be, they have to be the Stepford wives, basically. Yeah. And which I'm sure you have seen this in New York. I've heard you talk about that, about the women who go into these stores every day and they're trying to fill their own cup by purchasing things or whatever. Their husbands aren't home and they're lonely and whatever. And you've got to be able to, it's like we teach our kids what we're saying. It's, you have to be able to go out and create your own fun without someone else handing you the fun. So women, we have to be able to create our own pleasure, purpose, right? Something fulfilling. We have to create our own fulfillment.
Yes.
We can't just expect everyone else to give us this fulfillment, because then it's not as powerful, I guess.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I will say one thing about that me time that I think is important to recognize, and this comes a little bit out of the scholarship I've done for Sofxle, and some of it comes from conversations with a good friend who's been a SEAL for 20 years and is still active, but is my same age, he's really been in it a long time, is the importance of active recovery. And we understand what that means for our bodies. Like, if I'm running, training, lifting every day, I need to look at hot yoga or massage or cryotherapy, my nutrition, whatever I'm doing to actively recover my body. But one thing I get into with police officers is we have to start understanding that mental active recovery and what that looks like, especially when we're on a stress kind of roller coaster. So, like your parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous systems, when your stress is activated, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, then you have these downswings, and they call it parasympathetic backlash. It does take your body some time to biologically recover from that downswing. But this is the important part is your me time has to be conducive to that recovery. So healthy me time is, um, maybe faith-based practices, meditation, yoga, bath, quality time with your children or animals, horseback riding, hiking, time in nature, gardening, cooking, spending time with an elderly family member, like anything that's going to feed your soul, that makes you really feel that oxytocin in your brain and kind of activates different chemical systems. That's healthy active recovery. But like if your me time consists of, you know, I don't know, reading the trashy mags or like watching The Walking Dead or something that's going to stress you out in a different way, going down the social media rabbit hole, looking at Pinterest things that make you berate yourself. Or I even avoid, to be honest with you, all those lifestyle magazines like the Joanna Gaines and the whatever. I don't want to see your little fake perfect life. I can't relate to that. Sorry. I don't want to see it. I mean, I don't want anything fake in my downtime. I would stop reading fashion magazines. I don't follow any celebrity influencers because that stuff is all toxic. And that's not healthy downtime if you come back from your quote unquote downtime feeling more stressed out. I've even read, there's Mark, he's the one that does the Primal Blueprint books. I forget his last name, but Sisson. And he was kind of one of the main thinkers behind the primal movement and nutrition and lifestyle. And one of the things he talks about is, um, and this is something I thought about as a combat sports athlete, is making sure that your workouts aren't too stress inducing, like certain types of workouts. If you're looking for the mental health benefits and you're not training for a specific sporting event, you need to think about keeping things within a certain range, like fun and play. Those are healthy for you. That's healthy for your body, mind, and spirit. Soccer games, softball league, volleyball league, good. But like things that are going to really stress you out, like if there's this cycling class that you always get in there and you're looking at the women next to you in their $800 Lululemon whatevers, and everyone's got their fake boobs and their fake butts and they're paddling as hard as they can with 4 carat diamonds on, that's not fucking good for you. Stop it. Like, I see you laughing because you must be able to relate to me. Like,
I totally know what you're talking about.
Toxic.
I'm going to beat you, Karen.
Right. And
you're not going anywhere, but I'm going to beat you.
Yeah. What are we doing here? Like, women are so full of power and energy and strength in this world. And so much of like what society has put around us is like the equivalent of high heels, the way they stifle a woman's ability to move. The thing about dieting stifles your right to take up space in the world. The thing about being soft spoken and quiet stifles your right to have an opinion in the world. And it's like everything, the whole thing about, there's empowering ways to be sexy and there's really disempowering ways to be sexy. Like there's so much stuff for us to choose from. And we have to think about what's good for us and what, like our soul, and what's really toxic for us. And then sometimes what the world tells you is good for you is actually really toxic for you, in my opinion.
It just all comes back to knowing who you are and being proud of that and loving that. I mean, I'm not being the woo girl. I'm saying to be able to go on with being strong, to become an MMA fighter, to become a Olympic snowboarder, you have to be okay with yourself. You have to not care about what anybody else is telling you as far as you're not skinny enough, you're not strong enough, you're not whatever enough. It's like, no, guess what? I know that I'm enough and I have a passion that's going to prove to you. It's like the Rudy, it's like the concept of Rudy. It's like, I am enough. I will show you,
Yeah.
Why are you limiting yourself by these things like the, Joanna Gaines, which I love her. I think she's darling, but it's true. My house does not look like that. And I don't know that it ever will. Maybe one day it will when I don't have kids like trashing the place every day. But for now, that just stresses me out. The feeling that I have to live up to that.
Right.
It stresses me out to no end. And I'm the same way. I do not follow celebrities. I do not follow, it physically hurts me to
Yeah.
give into that, and the fact that people give into that
Yeah.
when it's so, we have one life, okay? One life. This is my husband's mantra. His account is actually one life, so live. So one life. What do you want to do with that life? Do
Right.
you really give two F's about what so and so is saying about you or thinks about you? No.
Yeah.
Do you care that your children love you and think you're amazing? They don't care if you fit in those pants. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I want you to
Right.
be your healthiest best for them so you can live the longest life you can.
Right.
So maybe don't be like in your pajamas thinking that's your best life,
Right.
but definitely conceptualize who gives two F's about what the Joneses think, you know,
Right.
and think more about internally what you think.
Yeah. And also start to recognize that the human condition is universal and it doesn't, nobody is exempt from the same struggles and strifes as one another. I mean, go look at the Harvey Weinstein trial details if you want any example of that. You know, peel the screen back and look at how crass what's going on behind the scenes of what we used to think was perfect is. I mean, I remember 20 years ago when I was shopping for my wedding dress and looking at Georgina Chapman and Marchesa and all this stuff, and she was married to Harvey Weinstein. Look what she was married to. I mean, and that's not a judgment on her. It's just keep in mind. And one thing I think the longer I live, the more I'm starting to see it. And I just said this to my boyfriend this week. Really does seem to me that the harder people try to put on a perfect facade, the more compassion I need to have for them because there's something they're trying really hard to cover up. Like there's something that's not okay, um, that they're um, trying to make up for. They're trying to show the world something. They're creating an image, and you see it because you get these surprise divorce announcements like once you hit your 40s, and things aren't so glossy anymore, and it's always the people that everybody thought was perfect with their perfect Christmas card and the perfect house and the perfect dip, bup, 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 bup. And then one day it's just like over and everybody wants to know why, and it's like, well, everybody's soul was completely empty at that point in their life. I think I was fortunate, um, as a teenager. This is going to sound crazy. Don't think I'm crazy, but it just defines who I am. Is I found the Grateful Dead when I was about 13. Like my house burned down the summer, August 1991. After my house burned down, some neighbors gave us a bunch of stuff, T-shirts and stuff, and in there was a cassette tape with Skeletons from the Closet, which is like their Grateful Hit, their greatest hits or whatever. And that kind of started me on that path. As I found the Dead, I started playing guitar. But what I learned, back then the community was still authentic. It really was. There were a lot of people that had carried over from the 60s and my parents' generation, and the values they brought with them, like if people don't know about dead culture, they think, well, it's just one way. And it was like, no, the whole idea was you follow your bliss in this place, whether you're a Hell's Angel or you're a hippie that wants to drum naked, it's fine. Just do unto others as you'd have done unto you and leave other people alone. Have freedom. It was like a true libertarian culture in that way. And it really heavily influenced me all through my formative years. Like that Grateful Dead culture exposed me to reading a lot of different Zen stuff and different Buddhist thought and different gurus and Indian thought and all these kinds of things that started to change. I guess poetry and literature and Kerouac and all these things and the Native American pieces that we were getting exposed to at the time. And my mom was traveling out west, taking us on. She had a grant to study Native American culture, so we would go to like museums and powwows and things around the West, and like all these little pieces that came in and hit me and showed me there are so many ways to experience human existence, that are timeless and stretch on through history. And going to college and studying for as long as I did and going back and studying medieval stuff and philosophy and ancient history and because being an Italianist put me right in the heart of all of the Greek and Roman, and it just went so far back, and the roots of Christianity went so far back. And all these pieces came together in my mind as this stew that really helped give me a counterpoint to the things that contemporary culture tries to sell you. Like, okay, culture's telling me that that I'm supposed to be this one way, but there's this whole other side. And I guess that's what counterculture is, um, and rock and roll and music and the bands that I was into, they still influence me. Like, I love the spirit of rock and roll because of how it embraces the idea that it's a pure expression, like rock. I love Motley Crue. I love my hair bands. I love like every that just raw burst of like, here I am, here's what I'm doing. I'm a human. You only live once. Do it. Um, that's a really, I guess I'm starting to see the older I get how fortunate I am that I got to grow up that way because it gave me like access. It's not my wisdom. I'm just a receptacle for wisdom. Like I've seen a lot of things, and it makes me feel like I have things I can share with others who might not have seen it.
And perspective.
Yeah.
That's the most fortunate thing you can have is perspective, because it's like sitting down with someone who has completely. So my husband and we do a food anniversary every year for our anniversary. We pick a city and we go to that city, and sometimes it falls on Thanksgiving, so it's actually horrible. But this one time we were in Malibu, and we found this one place that happened to be open for Thanksgiving, and we went to breakfast, and there was a man and a woman sitting there, and I won't say who, but we found out later on he was very famous. Mm-hmm. But he looked like a farmer. It was during those fires too. And he'd been up there helping his neighbors and trying to help save structures rather than evacuating, whatever. Mm-hmm. And he had his Ugg boots on covered in charcoal and ash. And I mean, looked like a farmer, looked like nobody, whatever. But anyway, there are these people that we know as far as political views and not necessarily values, but we would be opposites, right?
Yeah.
And we just had a really great conversation with them. And it kind of left us like thinking, it doesn't matter that you have these completely opposite views of what things should be. But the beautiful thing is that you can find the common ground in appreciating that there are other views, mm-hmm. right? And not just instantly damning someone for theirs. And that's what I think is so sickening right now, is that our culture is either mm-hmm. you are this or you are that. Mm-hmm. And if you are this, I don't even want to talk to you. I don't even want to look at you. I don't even want to, like Pink said, I want all Republicans to stop buying my music and listening to my music over the Roe v. Wade stuff. And it was like,
that makes me sad because I actually love her.
Why would that even be a concept? The Dixie Chicks said something about Bush and they were like banished from the country.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
But here someone can say something like that, which everybody's saying stuff like that now. It's very one side or the other. Right. And nobody says boo about it. It's like, what? Since when did we just stop being human?
Yeah.
Right? We are all human.
Yeah.
It's fine to have different opinions. You're Mormon, you're Catholic. That was another thing. Travel was just eye-opening for us, was how can one person say they're right when this person over here says they're right and this person over here says they're right? You just have to appreciate that everybody thinks they're right.
Yeah.
And love each other anyway. Right?
Yeah, no. Yes. I completely get it. Because honestly, like, we have to have some self-awareness about social media, especially folks like you and me. And I'm probably a little bit older than you, I'm guessing. But, the generation that, like, I went through high school with no cell phones, or just the one big giant cell phone under the seat of the car for emergencies.
We had pagers.
Right,
that was
pagers.
The big thing in high school.
There you go. Right. So we didn't even have email in high school or whatever. So we knew what life was like before social media. We knew what our social lives were like before social media. And then I remember where I was when I opened my Facebook account in grad school at the University of Pennsylvania. And I watched how my life changed ever since then, for better and for worse. I mean, I was able to start a business, because of it. Great. That's wonderful. Network with people I wouldn't have had access to otherwise. But the flip side of it is, and the really, really bad side of it is I've had a lot of relationships and friendships completely end over petty political fights. People I knew in college, an old roommate, people I knew in high school, people that, we always managed to work it out. But somehow whatever animosity was stewed and cooked up, and knives were stabbed and twisted on social media, it just became less toxic to just block those people out of my life. That's a huge tragedy. And it's sad that as a society, we've been at it now for 20 years of this nonsense. We've all gotten into it with a neighbor, and we still can't stop. Like, we still can't recognize that if you just find some compassion in your heart for another human. I have a lot of friends that I see face to face that I don't interact with on social media, and I don't know their political party. Like, how about it? We don't need. And what was I going to say? There was something that was really important to me. Um, oh gosh, I lost it. I'm sorry.
It'll come back. It'll come
Oh,
back. That happens. There you go. See?
it was the article I wrote. Yeah, it was one of the most. It was article of the year at Havoc Journal. It was about foreign disinformation campaigns and them weaponizing social media. So our nation's enemies have absolutely, they're not stupid. They've absolutely figured out our tendency to do this. They know that social media is the perfect place to do this. They get in there, their trolls and their bots and everything. Absolutely. Like, I'm suspecting that all this stuff going on with Kanye and Kyrie Irving and stuff right now, that's probably heavily influenced. Those flames are being stoked by foreign bad actors who are like, oh, good, blacks and Jews are going to fight each other. Let's fan those flames. Oh, good, Democrats and Republicans and elections coming. Let's fan those flames. I just saw a headline this week about Russian disinformation and stuff is ramping up again ahead of election day today. And I think, like, we need not to take it all back to my work, but we need to recognize that these are like that propensity to um, allow these social networks to like magnify the worst of the human psyche, which is what they do. Really, they can do, um, like, in a very Freudian sense. It's all id stuff. It's all like the darkest parts of our psyches that get on there and they echo and they echo, and then they cause damage and they drive us apart. And you can actually see the real world outcomes on the streets of our country, in our politics, on the daily news. That is, in my mind, something more people need to be really actively concerned with. And people in person, in our actual communities, we all need to be thinking, okay, like, to your point, how am I building relationships in real life to counteract these evil side effects of this social media beast that we're just beginning to understand?
It's scary.
Yeah.
It's scary to even think about it that way.
Yeah.
My husband says stuff like that all the time. And I'm like, la, 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 la. I don't want to hear it. La, 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 la. I'm just going to live like, I don't know. Everything's perfect. The bomb's going to go off and we're just going to be up at our cabin. High ground.
No, I don't mean that. I'm sorry. I'm not, no. But
Whoa.
I know, right? Like, de-escalate. But, like, by the same token, that's like, it's good to have the perspective so that when we do get in our cycling class or our Orange Theory or title boxing club or whatever we're doing, and we're mad because Jessica just got 300 more punches than I did, and maybe the punch sensor on Jessica's bag is just more sensitive than mine today, and that bitch, and like, we have to try to maybe tone down that side of ourselves, because the world is rough enough as it is. We don't, like.
And what's the point of it? Like, you have to just ask yourself. I mean, I think maybe people just take themselves too seriously. I'm on here and I say most people probably come on here and watch, especially the YouTube versions of these episodes, because they're just waiting for a train wreck. They're like, what is she going to do? And I'm like, I don't know what to do. Like, what do I do with my hands?
I know, right? Wait, I just got nervous. I was like, wait, are people going to see me? I've been fidgeting this whole time.
I am too. I have my feet up. I do that too. I sit that way too. I'm always cross-legged. That's me too.
Yeah.
Well, holy cow. I have so many points here that we have only got on like a couple of them from me going through all of your back and whatever. Okay. Here is the point that I really, really would like you to help me with, because I see this is such you do talk about, and we don't need to talk about it. We don't need to go into it, but from a sexual assault when you were younger to nobody talking about it, sweeping it under the rug, like it's your own fault, blah, blah, blah. Women take on this victim mentality, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even if you haven't had a trauma like that in your life, it's okay. I have friends that I know they have experienced some serious trauma and they have been through some crazy things in their life and childhood, and they've raised or grown up to be these amazing people. You know what I mean? And they did it on their own. They did it without anybody saying, let me help you or whatever. I mean, other than friendships. But these people have done amazing things. But then on the other side, you've got these people that are like, woe is me, boo-hoo. I don't know how to run the platform you're on. I can't do this. I'm just going to be this today. And I'm like, I just want to shake them. How do we get out of the victim mentality? It's been on my mind, and I need to get into something else because it just keeps weighing on me because you can't help someone by dragging them, right? You can't make someone get out of that. But how do we begin as a culture? But for me, it has to be for women. You know, this is about women. How do we get out of that? Get out of this victim mentality.
One thing that's helped me with that, I mean, I think I've been fortunate in the way I was raised in a very proud Italian family, and my mom, would always tell me we're resilient. And when she and my dad got divorced, when our house burned down when I was a kid, she would always reinforce that point. And she'd look at me and she'd say, we're strong, we're resilient, we're DeFrancos, we move on. And I had that in my mind, like, well, that's who I am. That's what I am. That's what we are. And I heard something not long ago that really stuck with me, especially as somebody who does have anxiety from time to time, and just I get over it and I move on. And I don't want anybody to feel sorry for me. So what? It's just a little thing I deal with and then I move on with it. But somebody said, your current track record for getting through the worst days of your life is currently 100%. Keep going. Like, you're still here, aren't you? So nothing's got you down this far. That should give you great confidence. Keep going. But another piece that I really have learned, and I think this is from the operators I've worked with, and I don't mean to say by any means that this is exclusive to special operations. It's just a lens that I look through a lot of the time, as that's where my scholarship kind of focuses. A lot of them will say things like, and this one specifically I would attribute to JC Glick, which is my co-author on Meditations of an Army Ranger. JC talked about, or he used the metaphor for this principle of the opportunity doors. And he said, some people have a huge opportunity door. Like, if you're a Kennedy and you want to go into politics, congratulations, you have a huge opportunity door. If you're a kid growing up in Haiti and you want to go to Harvard, you have a smaller opportunity door, but there's a door. Sometimes in life, I think the victim mentality starts to take root when we freeze and we start to bemoan the fact that our opportunity door isn't as big as we want it to be. Like, if we're comparing ourselves to the people down the street, or someone has something we don't have, or they say, yeah, Gina, well, you started this podcast, but I can't because this and this and this and this. And they start to give excuses that they think are reasons when those are two different things. And what I've learned from operators is you can't stop halfway through a mission when the bullets are flying and start to say, you know what, this isn't fair because X, Y, and Z. So you guys need to stop, and we're going to stop, and we're going to start over to make this more fair. It's like, dude, no, you're going to die if you look at it that way. You have to stop, not even stop, but just understand your opportunity door is what it is. So what's your strategy to win given the circumstances as they are today, right now? That's it. You can't change anything. Like, I've tried to change my body in the way I look. I got the expensive hand-tied extensions that were supposed to change my life. They didn't. They hurt my head. They were itchy, and they made my real hair fall out. They didn't feel good under my snowboard helmet, and they were super hot under a cowboy hat. So those were not for me. I had long fake nails for a while. They were so pretty. They made me feel fancy, but I can't do barn chores, and they make typing difficult, which I need to do in order to make a living. So it's like, there are, I guess, these things we get hung up on that we think if I just do this one magic thing, it's going to like make my opportunity door bigger. You can't change those circumstances. Like, I can't change the body I was made with. I could starve myself and I would just look like a really emaciated version of me. I'm not going to magically change my body type into Giselle or whatever Bündchen. Like, I'm not built like that. I'll never be built like that. No amount of surgery or changes is going to put me there. And I think but that doesn't mean I can't succeed. Like, that doesn't mean I can't be beautiful. It doesn't mean that I'm not worthy of love. It doesn't mean that I can't make the most of what God did give me. I, I think that's, if we could shift the mentality to that, um, anything feels possible. It's no longer a matter of, like, I don't know what I can or can't do, but just, okay, like, what are the real obstacles in front of me? We start to get analytical about the challenges we're facing and the goals we have on the other side of those challenges. And we just start to get tactical and say, okay, here's the challenges. What am I going to do about these challenges? Get analytical about it, get tactical about it, get disaffected about it. Don't be emotional about it, and just move forward. Because when you're pursuing a goal, and this is another thing I've learned from special operators, is being emotional doesn't help one way or the other. Like, an emotional person in a gunfight isn't more effective than a calm person, and in fact, it's probably less effective. So an emotional person making a decision is probably not better off than someone who can remain analytical, with the exception of, like, love, and even then, um, so yeah, I don't know. I'm rambling. I could talk about it all day, but I think that
And
opportunity
choices.
door.
I just want to add to
Yeah,
that. I love it. I love
yeah,
everything you just said. I agree with it 100% wholeheartedly. I actually wrote down, because what's your strategy to win? That's huge. What
yeah.
is your strategy? Okay, you're giving me these poor me's. I can't do this. Okay. What is your strategy? If you want to do you want to get to this other side? Do you want to get through this door, door? Do you want to get through it? Well, yes. Okay. What's your strategy then? Give it to me. And here
Mm-hmm.
are all your choices that you have. Take responsibility for your own choices, your own actions. If you decided that you wanted to run a marathon, but every day, instead of getting up and going and training, you just sat in bed and watched Netflix and drank your coffee, that was your choice. Your door
Right.
got smaller because you made your door smaller. Am I
Yeah,
great?
right. Yeah. And I think back,
Oh,
you have those moments in life, like a memory that you remember who said it and where they were sitting and where you were sitting, everything. In high school, I
I'm
was
sure.
sitting in the senior room, and there was a girl named Precious Calloway, and Precious was sitting by the window and I was sitting on the couch, and I was bitching about something, which I don't remember because it didn't matter. And Precious goes, Alice, I've already heard you complain about that once before. I'm going to listen to you now, but next time I'm not going to listen to you unless you've done something to change your circumstance. I'm done listening to you complain about that. And I was like, girl, like, I was like, whoa, that was a mind blowing moment given to me by a 17-year-old friend who probably doesn't remember telling me that, you know? But um, I use that to this day. I say it all the time. I say it to my partner. I say it to myself. Like, I've complained, and he holds me accountable. If he catches me not doing that, he'll be like, "You've bitched about this before, but what have you done? Like, you haven't done anything about it." Um, yeah, it's. I think that victim mentality is insidious. Like, when I got divorced, I think the world kind of wanted me to see myself as a victim. Like, oh, poor single mom. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, who's feeling bad for me? I'm out here taking boxing fights. I'm crushing it. I have this great career. Like, my kids are doing awesome in school. I'm in the best shape of my life. Like, I don't know why you're feeling sorry for me, because I certainly don't feel sorry for myself. I mean, I've, like, measurably improved my life every single year since then. There's been no, and it's not that every year's been easy. I mean, my God, I had pneumonia. I've had all kind of problems in that time. And there was a period of time between jobs where I didn't have any money, but, like, I made it work, and I have really happy memories from that time. Like, the Christmas I had no money because I was between jobs, so my daughter loved these Breyer horses. So I went to my mom's, got an old bookshelf she had, and I painted it, every shelf of the bookshelf, like a dollhouse for her horses. Every shelf was a different mountain scene, so she could put her Mustangs, because she loved Mustangs, into the shelf. Like, every time I look at that, I feel such pride, because it was like I saw the mother's love in it that I poured into it that year that I didn't have anything. Like, my opportunity door was small, but, like, the achievement was glorious that came from that. It was so beautiful. Like, um, yeah,
On the other side of that, your opportunity door was huge if you think about it as being able to create something amazing rather than just give some cheap plastic toy that probably would be in the pile a week later, like that's awesome. I love that. I love that perspective. I love that you just said it like that, because that's so profound.
Well, maybe sometimes the small opportunity doors push us to be our best selves. Like when life is testing you and where you have less opportunity, where it's not easy for you, that's where you grow the most, and you you see what you're really made of. Like that's where you make your best, most beautiful accomplishments. Um,
It's true. You don't grow out of comfort.
mm-mm.
Comfort is, or, growth is out of being uncomfortable. Someone says all the time, I think it might be Ryan Mickler, he's the counterpoint to this, the male version. And I think he says it all the time is get comfortable with being uncomfortable. Because
Right.
that's what's happening in here. That's what we expect. So what, before I take any more of your time, I could seriously chat with you all day. You are like my spirit animal.
Yay. I love talking
You are
to you
too
too.
cool.
This is so. I love
It's
your
gonna happen
questions.
again. It's gonna happen again. We're gonna just drop by one day, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, hi, hello there."
I love Utah.
You're here.
I took a
Yes.
rad
Oh,
trip out there. Yeah, I'll go back there.
you would
anytime.
love. I'm gonna get you some information so you can come out and see our place. You would love it. You would absolutely love it. The bighorn sheep were out. They're finally back down the mountain, so because it's
Oh,
cooling off. So,
oh my
so
God.
we get to have our neighbors. They're our neighbors. We call them, and they get to hang out on our property. And we're like sneak around. The kids will go running out on the deck, and we're like, no, shh, shh, shh.
Love
But
that.
anyway, I wanted you to just tell me a little bit more about your scholarship, about you were talking about it. Is that what it is? It's a scholarship, right?
About Sofxle.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so it's a consultancy. So I go out to police departments and provide them with training that's specific to lessons that were learned in 20 years of war by special operators. So essentially, the impetus for starting that business came when I watched everything after George Floyd and kind of the whole defund the police thing, and everybody, like everyone was trying to make sense of these tragic events and understand this situation where nobody won. What can we do? And all I saw was that I had access to resources I thought could benefit police officers, because we have a society, again, enabled by technology, that is expecting now a no-fail mission from them. Every single call that a patrol officer goes out on now that they think might just be a simple domestic, that could end up a person 2 weeks on the job in a firefight that they are totally undertrained for and completely unprepared for. And I'm not saying that as a judgment of law enforcement. I'm saying that looking at people who are tactical professionals at the most elite levels of special operations in this country, and talking to them about that and saying, talk to me about how our government prepared you for your no-fail missions. Like, these are guys in hostage rescue units that would be sent in, where you better walk out with the right people alive and the right people dead. And there's no reset button, and the world is watching, so get it right. And when you talk to those people and you look at how they train, certain consistencies evolve, and you can see it doesn't matter if you're Green Beret or Navy SEAL or you're Army Ranger. There are lessons, there are certain mental approaches, there are tactical approaches, ways of training the mind, body, spirit. And we can take these things and we can talk to these operators about that, and then give that to police officers and help them get their minds in the space where they need to be to hopefully make be better prepared for the types of challenges they're facing, without in a judgment-free space. It's not a space that judges police officers, but rather says, like, what resources do you guys need access to so that you're not the next person on the news being tried for excessive force or whatever, unfortunate circumstance.
That speaks to me. It's near and dear to my heart. I was a dispatcher for 6 years.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes. And so
Wow.
I take that very personally. And actually, I don't think you keep saying that I don't mean offense by it. And I'm none taken, but guess what? These people are underfunded.
Right.
They get paid the least of the least.
Right.
And they are risking everything. Their families are risking everything.
Yeah.
and then the trauma that they go through.
Yes.
And then they have to go home and be normal people.
Right.
Like, good luck. You have to
Right.
come down off of that incident that just happened or
Yep.
that SWAT call that just happened. And now I got to go home and be dad.
Yep.
I got to let my kids jump up and down off me. And
Right.
it's like, are you kidding me? And
Yeah.
also, after all that happened, not even are they ill-funded, they are ill-manned. Like, who wants to be a police officer now?
Right.
Forget about it. You know,
Right.
so the ones that are still there or the ones that are coming in are the best of the best people you will ever know, because they are willing to still do this, even though they're looked at like this. Oh, yeah, don't get me. Okay, I love that so much. I'm sorry I said that was a scholarship, because I don't know why in my
No,
brain
you
I
know
was
what?
thinking it was a scholarship.
Well, I guess sometimes I
but that's
say
amazing. I love
scholarship
that
or
work.
what I study. Yeah, it's nice to see an application, you know, because it was always like a passion project working with special operations and supporting their community, but to just see the opportunity to bridge that gap as an academic. And that's probably where you got the word scholarship, is because I think of it as my study. As a scholar, I'm learning from this community and conducting my research with the operators and then taking it over to the other side. And like you said, we're investing millions and millions of dollars in our special operators. So nobody's investing that kind of money in our police officers, but they need the same training if we're going to ask them to perform at that level. Our expectation of police officers is completely unrealistic, but the best we can do right now is to try to give them access to some training from the people who've had the multi-million-dollar training, if that makes sense. Help them understand a little bit more about also the resiliency side of what that training looks like. To your point, when it comes to trauma, and help them understand, like, what ducks do I need to have in a row in my personal, spiritual, mental, philosophical life left of bang or before that critical incident, so that I'm more resilient in the wake of it. I have more things to lean on, and I'm not just left, you know, hanging out to dry. I agree with you. Anybody who goes into law enforcement right now is somebody with a calling. And that's another piece of what I try to do, is to reinforce the nobility of that calling when I go see them and really talk to them about finding passion for what they're doing, and helping them find a connection to guardians throughout history, warriors and guardians, I'll say, those who protected and defended society, and do the dirty work that needs doing to protect the innocent who don't really understand how badly they need that protection.
We just could have opened, I think we did. I think we just opened an entirely new episode, because it gets into, I love your talk. So I'm going to mention him again. My partner, Ryan Mickler, he just got his new book launched, and it's the Masculinity Manifesto. But in it, he talks about this inert need for violence. Mm-hmm. Is that the right word that I said, inert? Anyway, this need for violence that we have in us already is not a negative thing. It is a negative thing if you're using it in a negative way. Mm-hmm. It is absolutely something that needs to be there for me to be able to rush into a burning building to get my baby out of it or something, or for someone to be able to pull over when there's been a traffic accident and help that person, or for somebody, you know, anything. Yeah. It's not these people that are just walking by filming someone getting stabbed on the street, or it's, oh my gosh, this, yes, could be a whole nother episode. Yeah. In case anybody had any question about how I feel about our servicemen, our first responders, our police, my husband started a clothing line when my little boy, our first baby, was born in 2011. And it was funny. He's telling me about this moment when it came to him. His father was military and actually died when he was 27 from a brain aneurysm, left his wife with 2 young kids, and she was pregnant with my husband at the time. Wow. And my husband was holding this brand new baby and thinking, who are the heroes, right? At the time, there was a very specific clothing line that everybody was spending a fortune on to wear, and the people were junk. The owners of this clothing line were like getting prostitutes and crashing cars, drunk driving with prostitutes in their car. And, you know, it was just like the most horrible kind of people. But these are the clothing lines that everybody wants and everyone wants to spend a fortune for. Yeah. So he created Undaunted Apparel, which was designed for military, to be worn by military and active duty and first responders and all that. I'm just getting carried away. But anyway, so yeah, we created that clothing line not to make $1 million off it. We created that clothing line to give people something else to wear. The slogan is wear what matters.
Yeah.
And, it's, if anybody had any question about where I stand on that fence,
Sure.
there it is.
And as a dispatcher, I mean, and actually, I think the way that I found you was because one of the police officers who brought me out to his department in New Jersey was connected with a community of men doing something about masculinity. And I found you through
Order of Man.
Yes, that's how I found you.
So that's Ryan, my partner.
Okay. Somehow that I was going down that rabbit hole, and that's where I found you. And I was like, wow, a girl's version. And that is our connection. But when I was out in New Jersey, they took me to visit the dispatch center, the call center, and I could see a whole different side to the trauma. And it just, I know this is a side note, but yeah, it's no small thing, I think, what you did either, to take those calls and deal with people in a crisis moment and then have to sit on not knowing how that played out. That's a lot.
I love that you made that point, not knowing, because people don't realize that we don't. I mean, there are some cases where it's something that's super important to us. Like I have those calls. I know exactly what those calls are, that I absolutely had to know how that ended because I was so involved in it that I had to. As a human being, I couldn't just let it, okay, next call, boonk, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
You go from being, to next call, hi,
Right.
And you're immediately, you have to transform back to neutral.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine.
So.
And I spent a long time with the woman who was the head of that department, and she showed me a room she had set up for operators to decompress, dispatchers to go and relax afterward. There was music, there was a place to sit and just kind of de-escalate themselves. And she had played me some calls, and one officer on duty who had taken his life in the line of duty, and all this kind of stuff, and like these dispatchers that had to take that and carry that forward. So I just recognize your service and what you've done is really admirable. And what you're trying to do now with this and continue to serve with a positive message is awesome.
Well, back to you, thank you for setting an example of the things that we can do, things that are possible. Just keep going. One day at a time, one step at a time. Just don't have to eat the whole cake at one sitting. Just take a bite every now and again.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I think, the piece about being female, and I guess want to share that with your listeners, if I may, just as a girl, I grew up between two brothers in a very masculine, male dominant family. My dad, very strong, a trial lawyer, my brothers, big, strong athletes, very intelligent, rational men. One's a CEO now and one runs a, Merrill Lynch branch. And they're just high achievers. And I'm surrounded by masculine achievement. And I've looked at my own professional life and watched how for a long time, a lot of what I called empowerment involved trying to succeed in male dominated fields. Like, hey, I'm a snowboard racer in college, but you know what? I'm going to beat all the guys. It's easy to beat the girls. Let's beat the guys too. Or I'd go to the gym and want to spar the guys, or look, I can hold my place in the special operations community. I'll be the Charlie to your Top Gun Maverick or whatever. And just keep, I just kept trying to like prove myself according to masculine definitions of power, strength, alphaness. And what I've been exploring, and it was really my daughter, who I noticed was born the same year as your son, you said 2011, as she started to enter the middle school years. And I realized if I continue to uphold this, what I see is now as a pretty sexist definition of strength and power, I'm going to discredit her and her friendships and put her in the same position I felt like I was in growing up, which was how to compete with men. Like winning means beating the guys. And so that's the journey I'm currently on. And that's what was so exciting for me when you reached out is, and what coaching young women has been part of that mission. And those girls that I coached this fall were a big piece of beginning to learn more about this, is starting to understand what does my strength or my excellence or my power look like in female terms? Like, if I can separate that from, what does my beauty look like if it's not for the male gaze? Like, what if I'm beautiful because, what do I think is beautiful about me that doesn't involve trying to make myself sexually attractive to a guy? That's fine. I mean, there's time and place for that also, but like, what what does my empowered self look like? And what is the strength of a group of girls look like? Like, my field hockey team had something that we could harness to win that a boys football team doesn't have. Like, we had this sisterhood and this passion for each other, and these girls would lay it down for each other. They went to battle. And I started to see something about female power that I would talk to my girls about. Like, nature gives boys an innate playful type of fighting. Like, boys romp and they wrestle or whatever. We don't do that with each other. Nature prepares girls to fight to defend our babies. So make no mistake that when a woman taps into her fight, it's like fight to the death, all guns blazing, take no prisoners fight. And when I gave my girls permission to go there, I said, look, we're going to be good sportsmen. We have good sportsmanship. We represent ourselves in our schools well, but take no prisoners. We're not here to apologize for mistakes on the field. We're not here to stand there and watch a ball and take turns. Go get the ball, make the win happen. And they did that. It's like, that's been my experiment now. And what I'm curious about and what I hope to learn more about knowing you now and listening to the content you're putting out there is like, what does that what does the Society of Empowered Women together accomplish? Like, if I could do that with my field hockey team, what could I be doing with my career and my professional life? Why do I feel like I need to keep trying to do it the man's way and make it in the boys' world when there's this woman's society where, like, when we truly do stop being jealous of each other and we truly do support each other, we are some bad bitches, you know?
Yeah, I love that you said the sisterhood, because guess what? That's what's going on in here. The sisterhood, the
Yeah.
revitalized sisterhood. I think you just blew my mind. And just so you know, I'm pretty sure you just started writing the book we're going to collaborate on.
Okay. Yay.
Just so you know, you just nailed it. And let's keep going with that one.
You know,
Coming to a bookstore near you.
right? Well, think about it. Like, what content is out there right now for, like, right now the women's empowerment kind of notion has been owned by like the gender studies, feminist theory, whatever people in
Yes,
universities. And
which I want to break down.
yeah, I'm not a huge fan. I feel like that community is not inclusive. They're like, here's what you're allowed to say, here's what you're not allowed to say. Be like us or you suck. And they're very, I don't even know. I think it's toxic. I think there's and that's why I think revitalized womanhood, that you're working in a complementary fashion to the men's program that your partner has out there. That's the right idea. Like, there's a place for women like us that don't want to reject every notion of quote unquote traditional femininity. Like, we're not going to deny gender difference. We're going to embrace and harness gender difference and talk about what makes us awesome.
Do you see this?
What's that?
All of
Yes,
these women
I've
behind
been
me.
looking at that. I
It's
love the
oh,
vintage vibe.
it's 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 my irony. I call it the June Cleaver method. It's what was so wrong with being June Cleaver?
My
She
mom,
loved her life. You know,
right?
she was always done up for her husband, and she loved her kids, and she loved her house and
Yeah,
everything. Like, yes, we can do other things with that, but what's
yeah.
so wrong with what she had going on?
Yeah, literally nothing.
Nothing.
Like, if that's your dream, live your dream. Like, my mom loves June Cleaver, and she raised me on Leave It to Beaver. And Leave It to Beaver, I feel like as a kid, I had this like ironclad moral compass. Like, I knew what to do in every childhood dilemma. You know, I felt like I knew what the right answer was, even if I didn't choose to
What
do
would the
it.
beeve do?
Right. Like, what was the lesson from Leave It to Beaver? But like, that's cool. And what's neat about me and my mom is we couldn't be more different. But she honors my wildness. Like, she gets it. She gets the rock and roll thing. She got the Grateful Dead thing. Even when people thought, you know, my mom wasn't into drugs and rock and roll in the '60s, but like, maybe I dabbled more than a fair share when I was in high school. And like, I think my mom watched with amusement. Like, well, her grades are still good. She's still, she's still an athlete, doing well. Um, so like, That's it. Wait, I think life is way more exciting when we don't buy into the there was an author, her book is called The Beauty Myth. I think her name's Naomi Wolf. It was a feminist book that really influenced me when I was young. And she talked in there about something called the Iron Maiden, which was like a medieval torture device where a woman would be, you'd be put in this box. Um, but the idea that society gives these molds of like when you get into these Pinterest girl identities or these influencer girl identities, and there's certain poses to stand in and certain ways to decorate your house, like you're buying these Iron Maiden identities that might not be you. Like, do your thing. You know, Gina's amazing in her floral top. I love your outfit. I love your vintage. I love your vibe. Like, my mom's awesome with her June Cleaver vibe. And my mom understands that I like to wear boots everywhere, even to the country club. And it just is what it is. Like, that's what makes us awesome when we own that freedom to be, um, you know,
Genuine. Ourselves.
yeah, yeah, man,
Yeah, I love it.
for sure.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for that. Thank you for being here with me and spending some time with me.
Oh my God,
I'm
I'm having
I'm
so
so
much fun.
motivated now.
Are you really?
I love it. Yes, I'm
Yay.
just like bing bing bing. I mean, my notes are like
Oh, you are such a thinker. I love that. I love that you actually went and like listened to podcasts and stuff that I've put out there. I always wonder if anybody ever
oh,
listens to that stuff. And
you I I actually looked up your book. I tried to
did
buy
you?
your book. It's like on sale
Oh,
for like $289 or
what?
something. I
Which
couldn't even
one?
find it. I don't, the one that you collaborated with that like really cool Navy SEAL guy.
Oh, Jeff, that's weird. I don't know what he did. He and I
Yeah.
haven't talked in a while, so I think he's put out a second edition. And
Oh, so
I
maybe it
was
was just a weird link I went
a
down.
weird link, yeah. And I was really Jeff's book. I was just the editor of that book, so I learned a lot from working with him, but it's not my work. The one I really collaborated on was Meditations of an Army Ranger with JC. Um,
No, wait, that was the one. That was
yeah,
the one.
so you have
I'm
to
going to
go to
look it
a
up. I'm going to
website
be
called
like, I'm going to go
Hatteras.
Rogan style here and like look up while I'm talking to you.
Oh, cool. Yeah, go to Hatteras is the publisher, and there's a thing called Prodromos Books. I think JC took both of his books to that sales platform. He was in charge of the marketing of the book. Um, so that's where it is. But it is tricky
I
when
love it.
things aren't
I'm
on
going there.
Amazon. Yeah.
I'm going there and I'm going to put it in the show notes because yeah, that was the one that I was actually looking up. It
Oh,
sounded so cool and I was so interested in reading it. So
it is fun. Yeah.
thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
lady.
Um, yeah, this is I feel like I don't know. I mean, I'm just grateful to have, I'm still exploring the womanhood side, and this is all new for me. Like, I've done so much in my career, maybe in the last 5 or 6 years, that feel exciting, but um, exploring, but I haven't been free of that challenge that I was just telling you about, of defining myself in terms of masculine uh, definitions of strength and power. And I think we have to all be aware of those Iron Maidens. Like, you see them, like, even when it comes to being a powerful woman, like, there's this stereotype in the special operations community. They all go find a fitness girl who's got the shoulder sleeve tattoo and the big eyelashes and the long extended hair, and then they pose with the girl, and she's just become an object, like a nameless, faceless accessory to his male greatness. And like we just have to, and but yet that passes for empowerment. And why? Because your body is fit, and because you've been chosen to be paraded around by an alpha male as something important sexually, I guess. I mean, um it's funny, like, I guess because Halloween just passed, I watched one of my favorite movies, Practical Magic. Have you watched that with Sandra
It's
Bullock?
my
And
favorite
oh
movie.
my God, I love it.
I literally I walked down the aisle to my first wedding to the one of the songs on that
Which
soundtrack.
one? Don't say A Case of You.
Um what am I going to sing on my
No,
podcast?
no, I was
Have you
asking.
always trust the first
Yes, the Stevie Nicks.
initial
Oh my
feeling?
God, you sing so well.
Do you love it? I was singing on my
You
podcast.
sing so well. I love.
Oh
Um,
boy.
no, but that. So okay, so then I decided to go down the rabbit hole. I've been cleaning my house and kind of like trying to get everything in order before the holidays this week. So I downloaded the ebook of the first book in that series. I think it's called Magic Lessons, and it's about Maria Owens, the original witch, and their bloodline. But what I've sometimes, when you get really sucked into a work of fiction like that, it starts to give you a vibe. I don't know, like an essence starts to come to me, even though I know it's fiction. And the vibe throughout that book is really about feminine power and feminine healing and nurturing, and these issues of the ways that we are needed by the people that we can heal or sustain, and the differences between the way it is with a mother versus a lover versus a child versus a mother figure, the complexities of those relationships, the depth of a woman's inner life. And it's so much of those stories. It's so rare to find anything. If you look at music, for example, it's so rare to find anything that's out there in a woman's voice that doesn't have to do with herself in relation to men. Like, look at pop music. When I tried to make an empowering playlist for my field hockey girls, all the girls' songs, if you look at like girl power playlists on Spotify, they're all like, I don't need you, boy. I'm too good for you. I'm moving on. And it's like, forget him. Take him out of the equation. Like, where's the songs about you and what you want and what matters to you? There's so much else going on in the world. Men write songs about that stuff, but it was very hard to find. I had to go back like 20, 30 years to find one or two songs by people that really came from a place of like, what does it mean to just exist as a woman? Like, aside from ourselves through the male gaze, or as a product for their entertainment or judgment or consumption. And so that book had brought that feeling back up for me. Again, like, I guess those questions of female identity, and it's been, I don't know, food for thought. So I love that you love that movie, because
I can't wait. I can't wait to be on this path with you, because now I'm on this path with you. Yay. And I can't wait to see where it goes, because that's really cool. I love it.
Love it.
Well, I better let you go. Jeez Louise. Jeez Louise. I told you I could talk to you for hours and hours and hours. But I'm just going to wrap it up here and stop recording, and then maybe talk to you longer. But I really appreciate you spending your time with me, and all of your insight has been so mind-blowing for me that I can't wait to actually implement it. Information without implementation is worthless, right? So I'm excited to implement, and I've got my call with my ladies tomorrow that I'm going to drop the hammer. I'm sick of it.
Will you tell me like about what you do with your ladies? Like, what is this kind of
Well, it's exactly what you're kind of saying. You're trying to define. So we have the male version, right? Order of Man. And the Iron Council. That is the membership, the group inside there.
And that's how I found
it is already structured. Yes, and it's already built. Okay. And a lot of these women are the wives of these Iron Council members, because they already know the benefit and how amazing this culture is. And so basically the men's, it's like, okay, we've set goals. We are going to do objectives, tasks. Here's your vision. Here's your objectives. Here's your tasks. And then we're going to do 90 days, and we're going to check in at 30 days. We're going to check in at 60 days. And then they have these teams. And so they motivate each other to become better men, honestly, better fathers, better dads, or fathers, dads, husbands, fathers, whatever. Yeah. So the women have just been craving this, right? This thing's been going on for 7 years. The women have just been craving this. And finally, Ryan and my husband came to me and said, would you like to, do this? And I said, yes. Oh my gosh, awesome. Yes. Like 100 times yes. But here's where it comes in. So here's where what you're talking about is, this is not the Iron Council. This is not the Order of Man. Mm-hmm. Yes, I understand where there's a foundation. Mm-hmm. So you have to have similar, obviously we have the similar beliefs, similar values, whatever. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to structure it a little differently. And so I am having growing pains, because it's hard. Luckily, I have an amazing group of women already that understand, they see the vision that women, I'm getting some messages from some Iron Council members that are like, if you could have this be even a little bit as good as what we have, you're going to do great. And I was like, excuse me?
You're right.
We are going to be so much better than you. Like,
right.
Yeah. What? And so I'm trying to create not a whole new, that's the thing, is I'm trying to create the Revitalized Sisterhood to have similar things. So we have to have a vision. What's your vision? We have to have our goal. We have to have our objectives. We have to have our tasks. We have to have a way to track it, because anything that you can't track, it's just going to get lost in the fog, right?
Right.
So there is the same stuff, but at the same time, I'm also telling these women to build themselves in business. Well, guess what? How can someone increase their budget, increase their value in monetary value if they're a stay-at-home mom? You know, the only way to do that is have a business out of your home or whatever. Well, so I'm playing around with creating a compensation for being a member, for telling people about being a member and bringing other people in, and, you know, and giving back. I don't need all the monies, right? Yeah. I'm fine. I'm good. I want to give back. And if I can make it so that Jane over here not only gets a free membership to be part of this community, she also makes $500 that month by just being here. I mean, you know, honestly, and now she's got money to either help with her family budget, or she's got some mad money that she can go and spend on getting her hair done, freaking covering the grays. Like, I know, right? Not feel guilty for buying herself a new pair of jeans instead of their son that needs new shoes or something. You know, it's like, give yourself the permission to put it back into yourself, right? Because if your cup is empty, you're pouring nothing out into everybody else's cups, you know? So I'm just trying to be the catalyst to get these women to just think in that way, right? I mean, maybe we have a CEO or someone in here that's crushing it in the financial world, but she's lonely. She has no friends. It's lonely at the top, right? She only has her friends or her employees. They're not her friends. So get in here and let's figure out how to create bonds with other women. And
I think I'm going to join. I need that. Like, I badly need
You
this.
need it.
I do.
I love it.
Because I'm starting to find what, you know, being with my field hockey girls, I bring it back to them all the time, but they did remind me of what it's like to have that network of girl supporters that it's all, you know, I maybe haven't had it since I was their age. I mean, to have like a moment, I remember when some silly thing had happened.
Like girls' camp.
Yeah, right. You need that. And as grown up, we don't have something in our society that gives that back. And I think we take for granted that we think nobody ever had that, and it's not true. Like the way my mom talks about the way my grandmother had life when she was little, she had this whole community of women on her street. Like the moms would hang out during the day, and they were all home and in the 50s, and like the kids would be playing outside and the women would be with each other. They had a network. And so we think like there's something wrong with us because we're struggling, and we don't understand that it's kind of unusual in the United States that like we have a baby and then just go home alone. And our husband goes back to work like the next week, and we're just there alone with like laundry, and our bodies are healing, and this baby's crying, and maybe there's other kids and there's animals, and like we think that's normal. And then you start to learn how it's handled in other cultures. You're like, wait, this like level of isolation isn't healthy for us. So I love what you're doing.
Yeah, wow. My grandma had what was it like? I totally picture it like the book. Oh crap, I always do this and I can't remember the name. But anyway, she had bridge group, you know? It was totally like, and yeah, I get it.
And my mom's generation does it. She's got like garden club and her homegirls that she hangs out with. They go antiquing. Like, so good. Yeah, totally.
So cute.
Love it.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, get on in here.